Good morning to all. Welcome to our special lecture program for undergraduate students, finance and its allied areas, organized by Kolkata Bidhannagar Society for Academic Advancement, coordinated by Azure Academic Services, West Bengal, India. Today's topic of discussion is Foundations of Research Methodology. I would like to welcome our guest lecturer, Dr. Debasri De Ma'am, who is an associate professor of Brainware University, West Bengal, India. She has more than 17 years of experience in academia, specializing in operation research and IT. Her research mostly focused on supply chain management. She has also contributed to a lot of academic and scholarly committees. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much for a nice introduction. First of all, good morning to all. Without wasting my time, I directly come to our today's session. It was planned to deliver a lecture which is based on especially the foundations of research methodology. Before sharing my screen, I will want to share some of my concept with my beloved students and the listeners. After few minutes, I am going to share my contents as well as I will deliver my lecture too. Yes. First of all, the question is why we are going to learn research methodology. Nowadays, each and every courses, be it undergraduate, postgraduate, even in PhD curriculum too, all streams are dependent on research. So, to know the technical and every detailed know-how, what are the do's and don'ts about the research, we should have undergone a series of overview, and we have a number of books, number of PPTs are available, number of courses are available, which is based on the research methodology. Research methodology, my dear colleagues, friends, students, the research methodology not only a general concept, it is a feeling. While you are in your field of research, you gradually have a knowledge, you just achieve a knowledge how to do, what to do, when to do, and which are not. But till there is a decorum, there are some formalities. To carry on your research, some of the terminology, some of the concepts, some of the do's and don'ts which I talked before, you have to follow. So there is a there is a series of books and PPTs or notes or Google etc. available, which are is a is your feelings, is your idea, which are listed under the name of research methodology. It's not a course of one day learning. It's you have to learn research methodology throughout your life. Even in your home, even in your education life, even your academics life, that means, and your working life too. When you are going to analyze something, you are doing your research, knowingly or unknowingly. So while you have to analyze something, you are basically doing a research, and if you found something fruitful after your analyzation, then how you achieve it, what are the procedures you have applied, that is basically named under the research at your procedures which you have applied till a series of your involvement, your methods, that means processes you applied here, all are combinedly known as the research methodology. But though nowadays the world is very much business centric, we all are running or chasing the money. Definitely, money is needed for everyone. So, business research is quite separated, a little bit separated from the normal research methodology. Well, so in my lecture, I will combine the concept of research first, what methodology, what is actually the methodologies, that is also I termed as foundation, and which is needed for the student, for academicians, as well as for the industry people who are very recently involved in the research field, and also all of my colleagues. And what idea I have achieved by my own, I want to share it. And what is general research, what is method, and what is methodology. So I just want to give an overview of the entire research altogether, and based on this idea we have to proceed throughout our course of research, throughout our research life too. I hope I made it clear, quite clear, though there is no audience. So I think it is quite clear I have made. So I am going to introduce or deeper part of my subject. Well, I'm sharing my screen now. Just a minute. This is my first screen. What I told here, I'm doing the foundations of research methodology. Okay. In next part, I want to introduce what I'm going to cover today. Am I audible and my screen is visible here?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank
Visible
you.
and audible.
In today's objective or today's lecture series session, I try to cover some basic understanding of research that I discussed before, and but some of the idea what is actually appropriate research topics to be chosen. There are different research problems that remain associated with those research topics, how to prepare a basic proposal which should follow throughout the research life, and what are the methodologies to be applied. Taking an example, next we will discuss how to organize and conduct a research, and want to write a research report and thesis. That is far beyond, but this is actually the foundation, this is the framework I want to highlight. In this framework, first I have to explain what a research is. There are a number of definitions against the research. I covered some of the definitions in some of my slides, 2, 3, 4, etc. But first, I want to explain in my own word what a research is. Actually, um, research, what I understood, it is comprises and defining various problems. It is a combination of some of the hypotheses or along with their suggested solutions. It based on collecting, organizing, and evaluating data, and therefore making deductions, reaching the conclusions, and obviously carefully testing the conclusions to determine whether they fit for the formulating hypothesis or not. Okay. The manipulations of things and the concepts or symbols for the purpose of generalizing to some extent. We require to correct or verify the knowledge, our knowledge obviously, whether that knowledge aids in constructions of theory or in practice. It is basically a part of social science or a part of art or a part of a general science too. So this is actually the concept behind the research. Research in simple term, I want to refer the search of knowledge. Search of knowledge our own, search of knowledge our surroundings, and search of knowledge which we want to apply. So it is a scientific as well as systematic search for information on a particular topic or issue, and it is also known as the art of scientific investigation, so that several social scientists have defined research in different ways. In a famous definitions which can be quoted for Encyclopedia of Social Science, where is Dr. Selinstad and Mr. Stephensons in 1930, they introduced the concept of research, and from that time onward, the research methodologies followed till date. It is a manipulation of things. It is a concepts or symbols for the purpose of generalizing to extend correct or verified knowledge that I already told, and whether that knowledge is in construction of theory, in the practice, or in the field of art or social science too. So in my presentation, here are some definitions of research which highlight the search of knowledge, what I already told, and it highlights the systematic scientific process too. There are various dictionarical definitions, and those are included. Instead of reading those definitions, it's better to discuss many more parts of the research, so what we can cover. There is a very big difference, and the myth and some myth, basically to say myth, lying between the concept behind research method and research methodology. Let me explore this. I told the methods and methodologies, it is not always same, but in some book, in some write-up, it was found that, or it is been found that students are writing that research methods and proposed methodology to be applied. Which is the right word? Can you say which one is the right word? What we have to write? This idea generally comes from when you review number of literatures, when you read at least number of literatures, you find which word is used mostly. And most of the paper asking for the methodology, not the method. Is there any difference? Definitely. Yes. The methods include all those techniques which is actually known as methods are adopted for conducting the research. Whereas the techniques or methods are the researchers which adapt for conducting their own research studies. So, methodology is the way in which research problems are solved systematically. When you have to write the research proposal or research thesis, which actually termed as, or your research report, they are asking for, even in the paper, it is asking for which methodology you are adapted. So it is a science of studying how research is conducted scientifically, and under this, the researcher have gained their knowledge about himself or herself with the various steps. They are exploring their knowledge, generally adapted to a study for a research problem. It is along with some underlying logic behind this, and it is not only important for the researcher to know the research techniques, methods, but also the scientific approach, which is called the methodology. Now, I hope it is quite clear which term we will use and what is the difference between the method and methodology, and which word we should write while we are explaining our research concept to our external world. Yes. In the next step, we have to say something more about the research methodology. I told it is a process, but it is a process in detail to collect the information, data, for the purpose of making business decisions. I told my dear colleagues already, we are talking about not only the research concepts, normal research concept, it is also highlighting the business research, which is a very trendy term nowadays. So we have to go for the various data collection, purpose of making business decisions, all are related to our business objective. So these methodology include, which are in detail, publication of research, interview, survey, and if other research techniques, which could include both present and past, that is the historical information too. Research methodology is a term I told. It is basically means how research is done scientifically, and it's a way you have to explain systematically and logically to solve a problem, which helps you as well as other to understand the process, not just the product of research and not just the analysis method, what method you adapted for detailed analysis in addition with the informations obtained by them. Based on the various type of research methodology, we will classify the research in some categories. Before coming to slide again, I just name the categories. One is basic research, very known term for the student and basic researchers who are very new to this field. Next one is applied research, especially science students are interested here, even in math field. Problem oriented research, we all undergoes these type of experiences. Problem solving type of research, and broadly all those research are categorized into two big category. One is quantitative and another is qualitative. The name indicates quantitative research means where numerical that means numerical involvements, empirical studies are mainly, and qualitative not mostly numerical. Why I am saying mostly, there is a confusion also. People are used to say qualitative means fully descriptive, quantitative means fully empirical. Once again, I want to remove these confusions because we are talking about today's time and moment. So most of the research nowadays, qual type of, that means it's a good mixture of quantitative and qualitative. No research is fully very much prominent, only having their features only qualitative and quantitative. And one more thing, qualitative research is quite critical, complex too. While it is quite easy to establish our concept using some quantitative features, some numerical evidences too. Okay, now I'm coming back to once again in our slide. Today my purpose is to give you the contents, give you the ideas of fundamentals. I already mentioned many more time. So I just cover the concept of methodology, concept of methods, which are technique basically. So here are my number of slides covering the concept of research methods. And here is the types of research I just explained a minute one or two ago. What are the types of research? I broadly said the research is classified as the quantitative and qualitative. Under this, there are a number of research categories too. Based on my previous words, the research not only classified based on the methodology itself, it based on some of the perspective too. The methodology which are giving you the ideas of this perspective, what are the applications of your research, what are the objectives or what is the objective of your research, and what inquiry mode you apply it for your research too. Based on these three perspectives also, along with your entire methodology, or these three words are generated from your methodology too, we are going to classify the research and many more. On the other hand, when we are examine a research from the perspective of application, a few minutes ago said broad category is either quantitative or qualitative. Same way, based on the research perspective of your application, research again classified whether it is a pure research or it is an applied research. Now, my dear listeners, you have to identify while choosing a problem, you be very careful. You are going to choose a quantitative one. Yes, if you say yes, then you have to identify, is data available for me? Can I collect the data, sufficient data? And if it is a qualitative one, you can get sufficient help. You have some sufficient literatures, which I let explain you later on, which is the literature in detail. But literature means based on which you are going to establish your ideas. You are going to put your idea chronologically, systematically, structurally before your audiences, before in the outer world, external world. So you be very choosy while you are choosing your problem. In the academic field, generally the people who are doing research, their supervisors take this part to help them. And in the student life, students having their mentor, their supervisors in their classroom. But in industry life, when you be a consultant or you be a researcher, the problem choice mostly depends on your own. You can take an help from your seniors or experienced one. So classification is the first foremost thing and identifications of the problem. After that, when you are choosing, well, I have chosen a quantitative research or qualitative research, then you look whether your research is a pure or whether your research is an application based. Pure research where you have some theories, you have some hypothesis, it is to be proven by the researcher by citing or by proving a number of experiments, better to say. Okay. And based on which your idea, your interpretation, some other candidates can proceed with the research. But in applied research, which mostly the social sciences is applied research, social scientists are working on this, the findings are designed for either for use or understanding of phenomena which can be changed during your course of action during your program. So applied research based on the applications which are required mostly for nowadays. So you can say, I can realize without giving an proper example, these things cannot be clear properly. So in applied research, you can decide, say one problem nowadays, you can see if you look various posters, various banners, various trainings, workshops are going on, either based on the concept of sustainability, some of the environmental phenomenon, mm, green technology, and in one word, all can say AI is the most relevant field of research. Somebody asking you, what is your research topic? I am answering, I am doing a research based on AI. This is a vague concept, my dear. Based on AI, you are using basically the applications of AI. Say I am doing a research, applications of AI while forecasting the demand for a particular brand of automobile sector. So this is a clear concept how you are applying the concept of AI. This is applied research. But in pure research, you want to establish, suppose you want to establish a comparative study, how much success rate achieved for a bestseller, or what is the rating for a movie is going on, and how many days it will last for a movie hall, or how many days it can stay in the impressions, in the memories of people, that type of. It is a very traditional concept. Nowadays, the entire world is based on the applied research. Again, I have to say same words while going to choose your problem. Nobody can define the methodology. I told it many more times before. I want to give you the impression nobody is the perfect teacher of your methodology. Your methodology you have to find out by your own, by discussing with your supervisor, by finding a number of study, your own reading, blah blah. But the concept is here, what methodology you have applied, that is your own, but how it will be applied, there is a decorum. So the formalities you have to fill it up. And that's why the first thing is that while you are choosing the problem, and while choosing, you categorize by your own. Nobody asking you while you are choosing the applied research. Or may ask in the time of Viva. This is academic. But so you have to answer by your own. May I choose the applied field? May I choose a quantitative one? May I choose a qualitative one? If I say myself, if I can found the answer by myself, yes, I can proceed with this research. Okay, I think I tried to make it clear. I think it's going okay. Okay. I'm not getting any answer from anyone because it is not a seminar. So I think I'm explaining okay. Well, so the first few objectives I beat up. What is research? Let me summarize up to how much I covered. I gave you the basic concept what is a research. Then I summarize why research methodology is basically required to known by everyone, at least some idea. And then, is there any basic difference between method and methodology? And how many types of research? Why this classification? And what kind of problem we will be choose or we have to choose, and why. Up to that, I tried to cover in this my foundations. First phase. Now next thing is that um, if it is a chalk and talk methodology, I can have to summarize it again. Um, so this is my first few discuss. This was my first few discussion. Next, I entered the next phase of these foundations. You can see it is the second phase, that is the objectives. Now I decide the research problem is clearly chosen by the researcher. Okay. Anyone who will be in this field who are applying their methodological concept, they are the researcher. Researcher is a generalized term now I am highlighting. So researcher can carry the research study or they adapt any of the research methodology or can make a hybridizations of those. One is descriptive, very prominent four research objectives we have to meet it up. One is descriptive, second is correlational, third is explanatory, and fourth is exploratory. Am I okay? Yes. So it is the time to explain all those research types so that the researcher should have or get an idea what are different categories of research they will have to apply. Well, first of all, whatever be the research is, either descriptive correlations, I told blah blah. First, you have to define your research problem. If it is a write up or your mental image, very clearly you should define your research problem because you have already chosen these. So, what is a research problem? It is a statement about your concern, the conditions which you find out and need to be improved if required, or a difficulty which to be eliminated or difficulties to be eliminated. Some asking mode is there, some troubling questions which are exist, which you found from various literatures, that means studying of various articles, journals, books, or available content in the net. Especially nowadays, most of the students, most of us are dependent on the internet available things. And you can see a video or digital format also. Or in practice, that points to need for the meaningful understanding and deliberate investigation. So when you identify or write your statement, it is the description of an issue that currently existing which needs to be addressed. Well, it provides the context for the research study. It generates the question based on these and these questions to be answered in your subsequent phases. This statement of the problem is mainly focal point of any research. So, how to write those problems? You see in my screen the descriptive research is highlighted. So, there are basically 5 to 7 steps to make it clear for any effective problem solving. Through research, you want to find out those. First, you have to identify the issue. You should be clear about the problem is. You have to understand about everyone's interest on this. So you go for the possible solutions. You have to evaluate the options. You select one option, so number of options. You have to document the agreements. That means what are the consequences, what are the clauses, cause and effect. It is a very useful term you can know in your subsequent phases of research. That is the causal relationship, cause and effect relationships. And then you have to go for the agree with the contingencies, monitoring, evaluations of each and every phase. So, while in descriptive research, you can ask some of the questions to your own or your surroundings. Why? Because a proper problem formulation will allow the investigator to be on the track in contrast to an ill-defined problem which may be possible create the difficulties. So what are the questions? It gives you the understanding what data to be gathered, what attributes of data are appropriate and need to be analyzed. Well, that kind of questions. What relation should be investigated? What method should be employed for the purpose? All those WH questions. As well as some other questions turn up in your mind during the investigations. And you be the investigator who can well plan your strategy. You have to find the solutions of this kind of questions only when the research problem is well defined. So description is much more essential. So defining problem accurately is a necessity for any kind of research and it owes for a highest value. Therefore, I think it is now clear the problem formulation is vital than the solution. Am I okay? It is only on thoroughly describing the problem through which we can work out We can construct our research design, which can be efficiently proceed to all consequential steps needed while doing our research. The current questions which need to be addressed if research is to help the decision makers. A right answer for a wrong question leads either to bad advice or to no advice. Well, usually in problem, we have an inclination to rationalize and defend our actions once we have studied upon our specific research plan. Is it clear? So, the perfect time to examine and think about alternative techniques is the planning stage. That's why the description is required. If it is completed unnecessary expense, a false start, redoing the work, so that descriptive research helps us to prevent all those things. An excellent beginning of the problem definition is required to ask what the decision maker want to know. If the requested information can be gathered without error or without expense. Another excellent rule is there. What is this? Never settle on a specific strategy. At the very beginning, I told your strategy should be found or should be generated by yourself only. We just can have a guide, can give you the guidance what to do, what are not. And therefore, how to proceed with this research, how to proceed throughout our research life too. So without that's why what I'm saying, never settle on a specific strategy without developing and taking into consideration at least one alternate options too. My dear all, the problem definition stage as well as the descriptive research phenomena is the research is the determination and structuring of decision makers question. It should be the decision maker's question, not the researcher questions only. Definitely, if you be the researcher, you be the decision maker. Nowadays, one man have to do everything, so it may be your question, and you can try to get answer. What decisions do you face? Unless you have decision to make, there is not any research problem. Yes. So, what are the factors selecting the best alternative? That also to be cultivated from here. Unless you have a criteria for the evaluation, again I have to say there is no problem. The researcher generally should stay away from the acceptance of the superficial and obvious. Therefore, we may say frequently we all hear that a problem is normally clearly expressed. It is a problem of half solved. The statement indicates the necessity of defining a research problem is actually the research methodology. Again, I am quoting him. So, this actually also results in a smoother progress on all the following steps which are needed to overall finishing a research project. Listen carefully, I just used a term research project. Yes, you are correct. Entire research life is a project until you deliver a fruitful research evidences along with your own interpretation. It should be handed over to your future researcher, giving a clue how they will carry on the research for future. Research is never ended. So you can continue the research throughout your research life, but you did your part, okay? So now your part, which having a clear cut report, which I told the research thesis or blah blah, it is your product. But before that, when you planned, when you decide, till when you deliver, it is a project. Very long life. Don't be frustrated. Go on research. Without research, now the both academia and industry life is totally stagnant. We are in the academic field nowadays. Daily basis, I have to listen. Um, in my previous year of experiences till day, and mostly nowadays, there is a very prominent gap between industry and academia. Industry academia collaboration is needed. Academic expert, industry expert is delivering the lecture. Why those isn't? Industry people's having a sort of experiences. They are wrote by their own. They amalgamated all those by their own. They what processes they applied, adapted, and what are the things they have mixed it up altogether. So this is their academic results. Sorry, industrial. This is their results from their industry life. This is the sort of experiences gathered. They analyzed and they produced, as well as the academicians do, and the people who having both the background they mix it up. So in research, both sorts of things are required, which is mind that all things should be practical. Well, I said a lot, but while talking about the descriptive research, though it's the term descriptive, I have to say a lot definitely, my dear students. So, descriptive is not always analytical. Descriptive research consists of survey and fact finding inquiries of different types. Main objective of here is describing the state of affairs as it prevails at time of study. Most of the book it is said the term ex post facto research. By this, it is quite often used for descriptive research study in mostly social sciences as well as for the business research. BR, I told it, nowadays the term is very much knocking everywhere, especially in the students' life who are doing graduation, post graduation in their that means BBA, MBA sort of things in their after completing their 10 plus 2 standards. They should know what is the descriptive research because they have to start with the descriptive research. So the most distinguishes features of this method is that researcher has no control over the variable. He or she should know the report what is happening or what has happened. Majority of ex post facto research projects are used for the descriptive studies in which researcher attempts to examine the phenomena such as consumers' perfectness, frequency of purchases, shopping, blah blah. Despite the inability of researchers to control the variables, these studies may also comprises some attempts by them, that means the researcher, to discover the causes of the selected problem. So the methods of research which should be adapted in conducting descriptive research are survey methods that I give you a keyword once again, survey methods of all kinds. It is a it include correlational and comparative methods. It is also survey methods. You can recall while displaying the study before, that means my slide. I will again go back to my slides because I have to come in the next slide. I will explain you the correlations and comparative methods. Those are also included under the descriptive methods because you can call it a subtype of this method. So I already covered. Correlation means which factors are related with another, how, and comparative. That means a simple comparison between these two between any two methods. What you adapted a method A, adapted another method B. Is there any comparison? Why A is better? Why B is better? Why A is poor than B? Like that. So it is an analytical research. Researcher has to use the already available facts or information and going to analyze in a critical evaluations of the subject. That's the gist. Well, That's why I'm not running the slideshow, stopping everywhere. Now, I talked a lot because descriptive research is a longer one. So, here are some examples: attitudes of the students for quality teaching, strategies put in place in the company to increase workers' productivity, effects of living in a house in a domestic violence. Those are different category, not only based on the social science concepts, any concept. There are different sorts of research, and those are examples of descriptive research in different fields. First, you can see which one is purely academic, second one, the industry based, and like that. Now, though I have already mentioned which one is my correlational research, though one of the there we are trying to find out the relationships between independence or dependence of two or more aspects. In student life, it is often says we have two variables to identify: height and weight are correlated. These examples given by almost every teacher in the classroom. Yes, is there any relationships between the increase of the height or decrease of the height along with the height of the students or people? So this is a very simple kind of example of correlation in your research. In your research life, you have to identify, after doing a survey, which are the factors which are having a crucial role for your research, which plays a crucial role in your research. The factors, you can give a various name. The names are called variables. The variables having the variable that plays important role while you are going to analyze, especially in the numerical research, quantitative research. So one sort of variable in this connection, I have to mention one sort of variable which are known as independent, because they cannot be influenced by you, cannot be controlled by you. They are taken from your survey of your surroundings, etc. And another set of variables which are known as the dependent variables, which are influenced by the effect of independent variable. At least one independent and one dependent variable present to be analyzed in your quantitative research. So, suppose X is your dependent variable and Y is your independent variable, whether X is dependent on Y positively or negatively. That means if Y is increased, X is also increased. If Y decreased, X is also going to decrease or not. That you have to find out, or firstly you have to find out whether X and Y, which we have identified, is they truly related, and how they are related, that to be explained in the correlational type of research. And you have to explain, though you have to explain analytically, so it is a correlational research. It's a part of descriptive research subpart, but we are classifying this. Taking the examples of my previous one, here is how domestic violence impact in the adolescent standards. You can say the zone and the financial status and the study level. Why some schools adopt a program, others do not? Why the students drop out from a particular region? How does the technology facilitated learning and blah blah? So those are the various kinds of research too. Now, after discussing all those things, I will come back to one another category, which is the exploratory research, something different from the descriptive research too. Yes, just taking a short water break. So, exploratory research is a study based on the name indicates you are doing this study based on the concept of explore. That means exploration is required. Explore means what? Going in very detail. So, objective either to explore the area which is known, uncover the area which is unknown. You go for the investigate. You find out the various possibilities that to be undertaken for a particular research study. And when the study is carried out, to determine its feasibility, and also called a feasibility or pilot study. Yes, you have heard the various terms, the pilot study, feasibility learning, blah blah. So, pilot study is the initial study based on which your research can be carried or discontinued, that give a decision, and feasibility where you are trying to explore, you found the various feasibility, that is the possibilities whether you can continue the research or not. Along with the information technology fields onward, the feasibility is very famous words in social sciences too. We can undergo various feasibility, or we are exploring various feasible situations. What are the various feasible situations? Number one, we have to identify the feasible situations of the economic feasibility, whether our expenses not more than what we are invested or what we are achieved. It is called the cost benefit analysis or CPA. If we expenses 50 rupees, at least 5 rupees in our hand, so we go for the we can say our project, our research is economically feasible, we can carry out it further, continue it further. Second one, technical feasibility. What sorts of infrastructure is required? Do we have it, or we have to purchase it? We have to employ it. If it is found okay, then we go for the second one. And the third one is the operational feasibility. Whether we can continue this, do we have to outsource it, or we require some other types of helps. If the third part is found feasible, therefore we can carry or continue the research. So basically we highlight while doing the research three types of feasibility. One is economic, second is technical, third is operational. If these three are prime, if three found okay, then we go for the legal feasibilities, the project is a legal one or not. Or we can take the environmental feasibilities, it is a green project. That type of questions now it is very much prominent. And also we go for the social feasibility, what sorts of the what can I say, what sorts of social benefit can we obtain from this research. Those are, but those are secondary, my dear. All we have to find, focus on these three men. One is technical, sorry, first is economical, second is technical, and third one is operational. Okay, now we can go to the various we can go for the various modes of discussion. Inquiry mode, I just highlighted in my speech what are the inquiry we should proceed with, but again I have to highlight the inquiry mode too. So what is the inquiry mode? We are going for asking two types of research questions, research highlighting. One is very structured approach, which I told you the traditional one, and we go with the traditional concept of research, etc., which is called structured approach. The steps are quietly defined, clear to all of us, 1, 2, 3, 4 in this way. And second one is unstructured. There is no prominent steps. Where you have adopted, you got succeed, your unstructured steps, unstructured methodology, which you have invented, I highlight the words invented, is turned to be a structured one in future. So before or while in your explanatory phase, you then here is one more thing you have to give a stress, whether you go for a structured approach, which is a proactive approach, and whether you go for the unstructured one, which is a reactive approach. That means you are adopting something and it became a practice nowadays. After that, after you when you adapted a process or a series of process, you adapted it, you got success, etc. Yes. Mhm. Then, in case of structured approach, it is a quantitative research. In quantitative measures, there is a standard number of standardized measures too. It is numerical. You have to take a numerical values, which is called your sample from a population. I'm not mentioning the population sample in the very basic of fundamentals because some of you have heard this term and some of you may not, but the sampling, literature, etc., those are the another part of a series. That means one individual class mainly may be required to discuss about the sampling. One special one session is required to discuss about the that means the literature review, literature survey, what literature review and surveys are required for a research, etc. So I just highlight that quantitative research is mainly required where for a research who are going for a quantitative research, there are some specific standardized measures which are taking the numerical values which we call the sample from your population. The data may be primary or secondary in this case, no matter. Again, I give two terms, primary and secondary. Well, if time permits, I will give one to line discussion about the primary and secondary data type. But mind that in structured approach, they believe in a larger sample size. Otherwise, the research result is obtaining of research the result is quite difficult. Prominency is lagging behind. So the analyzed data using the some statistical program. That is the structured state. And study is classified quantitative. If researchers have to find out some quantity of the value, they have to identify some variations of phenomena and why these variations, etc., have to explain. So those are the jot down structured approach is basically a jot down of different numerical measures, different mathematical or statistical measures all together in a series. But unstructured, it's quantitative, qualitative, whatever may, you doesn't have any specific method, you applied, you got succeed, and your methods is became standardized then. But it should be in depth, you focus on bird's eye view. And one more thing, if you use some quantitative measures here, it the unstructured approach is not classified the quantitative or qualitative in that kind of mostly, whereas the structured one is mostly classified is, well, the structured means a quantitative. And in this connection, I have to say I'm giving you some very basic concepts. Deviations is everywhere. Questions may arise. So for your question answer, your doubt type of discussions, when you are in course of your research, number of doubts arising, and that is also a good sign. So I'm ready to answer in future all those discussion. I know where the questions come because I told already one controversy, the structured means a quantitative one. There are a number of controversies are nowadays available, and all answers are also available to me and research world. But I give you in the foundation course, that is the structured foundation discussion. The structured means, assume now it is a quantitative, and unstructured means mostly qualitative, but it's not classified strictly whether qualitative or quantitative. If it is mostly qualitative, you go for the in-depth, you adapt some of the methodology. But if it is having a qual mixture, you have taking some of the quantitative measures, numerical value, you must have some apply some scaling technique because there are number of scalings also, qualitative scaling and quantitative scaling. You measured your variables, how well they can placed in your research. Okay, measured means you can give some ratio. Some data may have the two values, male and female, yes or no. This is another kind of measures. It is called the ordinal. Once again, I gave you the foundations, many more time I highlight. So while in the foundation course, I just mentioned the steps. What are available, what are not, what are required, which are not, or which are the standard. But again, I told while constructing the research, you go for a series of experiments. So how you can plot your experiments? To generate idea, you require literature. I told literature review itself itself a discussion. Similarly, I just highlighted before that while constructing or going on in a research, especially the quantitative research, you required a lot of data. How to collect data? What are the categories of data? This is itself a research. After collecting the data, how you cleared the data? All data are not very much clear or applicable for the research equally. So you have to filter the data. So data cleaning is a part of research. Okay. And in this connection, I'm mentioning number of terms. Okay, data cleaning. After that, so clean data, how many data you gathered? Altogether, the volume of the data is your population. Taking how much values or how many data, how many numbers from your data, you do the entire analysis, or you are involving the entire data in your research. That is another topic. Suppose you have a 5,000 data in your hand numerically, and you are taking 500 out of this 5,000 for your primary establishment of your research. This is your sample. Which sampling technique you apply? Why? What is suitable for your research? This is itself a discussion. So from up to the exploratory category of research, I find out 6 more factors to be discussed in future based on your research. Okay. So therefore, my dear listeners or learners, I am saying the foundations, what are the required or not, which are available or not, but based on those things, we can go more deeper area of research, and to know research about a research itself a research. Okay. Mm. Yes. This is the gist of our second phase, which I already covered, mentioning some of the objectives. Look at the things from the viewpoint of researcher. Research is highly classified in 3 big categories, which are considering 3 big perspectives. One is application, second is objectives, and what are the informations obtained or available. Similarly, the application research, now you can recall, I classified it into big category. I am always saying the larger category I am pointing out. One is pure, another is applied. Based on the research objective, I classified descriptive, exploratory, correlational, and explanatory. That's I just covered. And from the beginning till now, I said research is basically classified based on the available information. You decide whether your research is quantitative or qualitative. So out of 6 to 8 objectives, I classify my research, that means my discussion, in 2-3 sectors. Okay. So I cover all those research, quantitative, qualitative, and somehow some qualitative research, sometimes known as the conceptual research too. So I'm not. Now, how to formulate the steps while your research, I'm going to highlight now. Just I'm stop sharing my previous screen, and up to that I come to one more thing, and I will conclude the foundations of today's discussion, the steps of a basic research. I said that objective, formulation, structuralization, that we will cover in today's discussion. Well, my dear students, before sharing my screen, I want to share one more point with you. One is what should have qualities of a good research. Yes, come back here. Based on this, I'm going to formulate a basic research structure. I said this is the concluding remark of concluding discussions of our foundation course. Definitely, I cannot cover the entire research foundations in 1.5 hours. It requires 1 week actually to make you alert what research is basically. So, qualities of a good research. While going or while entering your research life, you may be alert that your research, whatever be it, whatever I covered till now, your research should be logical or must be logical. It may be rigorous. It must be rigorous. All those points will be there. It will be systematic, valid and verifiable. At least some empirical evidence will be there, because without, I told the qualitative, pure qualitative, but without a single empirical involvement till date, it is also based on which a research already done. You cannot cover the research conclusions without a simple empirical involvement, and research should be critical. Okay. Now, this slide is stopped here. I'm moving to another PDF part. So where I will highlight steps in research process. This screen is visible?
Yes, ma'am, visible.
Thank you. So this is my next and today's concluding part, which are the summation, you can say, our entire discussion. Here you can see 10 points altogether. Not very easy to cover all 10 points within a single, very few, that means with very few sentences, because you require to feel this process actually. So altogether, entire research process, which is highlighted through our foundation, the entire research process will be covered or classified or segregated in these 10 steps. So while you have to formulate, while you write the basic synopsis or abstract of your research, you must have to cover by giving a prominent heading or not, but all those points be there. First, the selection of research problem. I already told many more lines about that, how you have to select. Then the extensive literature survey. In all researchers, while writing their basic reports, they said after an extensive literature survey, I found it out that. But extensive means how many literature you have to read. There is no boundary. Somebody says after reading a 700 literature, I did an extensive. And some people say after reading 7 literature, they have done their extensive literature survey. But definitely at least 50 literatures you have, based on your topic, you have to study before studying or identifying a research problem, because only 2-3 reading is not sufficient to give you a clear idea. Then is making hypothesis. After that, preparing the design, and this research design is very debatable issue nowadays, very controversial, very relevant issue nowadays. Preparing a research design itself a discussion. Then go for the sampling, data collection, data analysis, hypothesis testing, generalization interpretation, and preparing the report. And directly in the part of report 2. Acha, can you see my screen? Where is a selection? All those tapes are written? I think it's no.
No, ma'am.
Huh. Because inside of my screen it is not visible. Yes. Once again I stop sharing and I come to. Mm, I said enter screen. Why not it is visible? Yes. Can it is now visible?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible now.
I'm talking about much more. These steps, I'm actually want to highlight these 10 steps which are here. I mentioned these steps in my verbal discussions, of which some of the steps I already covered and some of are not. No issue. You are not. That means nothing is missing here. I just highlighted these 10 points. Well, so I'm in the first point, selection of a problem. You can read it clearly from here, but you be very skeptic while selecting the problem of the research. Now, the steps of formulating a research, you have to identify a research area. Okay, which area you are going to perform a job, your research. Then you have to find a suitable title. I faced such a problem while constructing the research. Sir, if you kindly mute sir or ma'am there. Yes, thank you. While formulating the research or while preparing a basic write-up, the selection of a title is a crucial part. I can face such a problem once upon in my research life. I want to construct a framework for identifying an inventory kind of problem, inventory related problem. I just have to end it with a plotting a framework, constructing a framework. But I gave the research title finding a model. So this question raised from the very beginning and the paper is not accepted at all. Because at the end, while in the conclusion part, what I did, I actually plotted a framework. I constructed a framework and my entire target is to find out the framework and based on this framework, some other people will construct the model. I leave a clue how to construct the model. What are the variables involved in the model? So model will be based on the framework. So while selecting the title, you be very clear what thing you want or which through which you want to end your research. What ending statement you left in your end of research in the conclusion portion. There should have a typical match with your title which you given. So while you're talking about what topic you have selected for a research, you have to say clearly what you have want to highlight. At the social media, you want to highlight something. Highlight means what you want to actually throw to your focused audience, focused listener, focused viewers. There remain a clear match with your title, with your objectives, and with your conclusion. And those who are new in this field, those who are preparing your what can I say? Those who are preparing your research proposal first, you must take care about this. And those who are new in paper writing area, that is from my IIT knowledge, my Shikha Guru give me a clear uh, idea what to write first. First, you decide title. Then, without introduction, you write objective. Without introduction, mind that. Then you go for if you know the end result because you did some basic analysis definitely. So, if you know the end result, at least write one or two sentences, prominent sentence in the conclusion. Then you form the entire research body. Okay, paper body actually. So in research topic, when you select your problem, you should be practical. You find out how important your topic is. You go undergo the feasibility I discussed before, how ethical it will be, and is it politically correct or not if there is some political involvement. Okay. Then from when, while you have to write some idea, you must know the detail about the concept. This is the part of literature. You can read journal, books, internet sites, articles. You can see number of videos from where you get the idea and from where you enhance your idea, or you can get some idea from some other people's mouth, recording, photocopies, etc. So those are the literature, but how you study the literature, this is another part of discussion. Extensive literature survey, literature study have nowadays very much trend is going on the bibliometric analysis, structured literature survey, systematic literature survey, which is known as SLR. Those are different part of discussion, but you have your idea, must have your idea while formulating your research problem, going on your research life, must read the literature survey at the starting, at the middle, even at the end of plotting the conclusion too. Literature is required in every phase of life, but while studying, it is must required. Then, based on literature, you have to find out what research gaps you identified. Well, so research gap means based on which your topic, what was done before, and what is pending to do. Okay, so what is pending to do, you can highlight, and if you have the feasibility, you can go with this. So your research gap is that after identifications of those gap, you can say you can proceed with that part. So this is your research gap identification, and this based on this gap, you can raise some questions, which is the research questions here. And based on these research questions, you can proceed your research life. Based on these questions, you are very much clear whether to solve those answer, whether to find out the result. Sufficient data are available because you have already a mental map whether you started your research. So your data is purely quantitative or qualitative or a mixture. And if it is purely quantitative, where you can avail your data? Well, from where you can get your data? If you are physically collect your data, this is a primary research. If you are directly concerned with the research, you can do a survey sort of things. You can did some interview, be it a telephonic or face-to-face like that. So this is the primary data. Generally, the primary data impurities are less and the volume is quite low in comparison with the secondary data. But my dear learners, you all know the data availability is very huge in nowadays. So today is the era of big data and we are in the age of big data analytics. Analytics is done through now implementations of AI are um, very much prominent nowadays. So while we are in the big data zone, we are mostly depend on the secondary data which are freely available around us. There are a number of training databases that are freely available in net. You can take one is RBI data set, from where you can get a number of data and you can perform your analysis based on which type. Say GDP. Financial analysis data are very much available, and number of secondary data are available based on the financial health um, of our country, other countries, etc. So your research questions highlight what things you want to identify throughout your research life, or if it is a paper, only through this research part. And based on the availability, you formulate your hypothesis. Hypothesis is none other than the assumptions. Well, once again, I have to say the same words. I am discussing about the foundations, but hypothesis is itself a part. So, based on the hypothesis, hypothesis is the assumptions. Say for I assume that through my research, I want to prove the number of female voters are huge in comparison with the number of male voters in a particular village. So, what data is required? Number of people, the male female classification, age of voting, and how many voters are available. This basic data is your required. So based on this data availabilities, based on your data, taking some sample, if you perform some statistical test, your hypothesis, if the result of this statistical analysis in support of your hypothesis, we can say that your what you want to establish, it may be your null hypothesis, it is said your H0 or null hypothesis will be accepted. Otherwise, if it is rejected based on your data or based on your data analysis, you can say null hypothesis rejected, alternate hypothesis is accepted. That means you said that number of female voters are more than the male voters in this particular village, but if your data supports that is not okay. So you have to say, well, not number of female voters are more, here is the number of male voters are more. That is your research things. But anyhow, try to prove your research. So if your data set is not supporting your result, so go to manipulating your data set. If it is feasible, that means generally it is feasible for the secondary data. There are another technique of another sector of research how to manipulate which data is manipulative or which are not. And if it is primary, there is no scope of manipulation. Which results you obtained, you have to obey this result. Okay. So go for the research design too. So after the formulation of the problem, you try to construct a research design. I told research design is second chapter, one more chapter to be discussed. So we have to prepare the design by the researchers. It is a conceptual structure, it's having framework and which leads to a model, and it explains the nature and purpose of your study. There are different research design models are available. You can take one of the pathway or mixture of pathway. You can customize. You can construct any agile framework. You can modify existing framework. We can be a critic of the existing framework, whatever. So you have to find out the source, skills, time, finance, all are reflected in your research design. Based on your research design, you go for constructing the sample which are now ready for the analysis. Sample are two types. Broadly, once again, I have to say one is probability and non-probability. This is another course of chapter. Some of the peoples are having a basic concept of statistics. They know what is probability and non-probability. We will discuss later, because based on the foundation course, we can construct a 2-3 month series of lecture based on each and every individual topic, and that should be known to all of the researchers throughout your research life. Suppose you are doing a 3-year research work, 3-year research life, you have to know different terms, and while you started with the concept and while you ended, the concept is being changed. Yes, I have to mention two more things. While collecting the data, be very relevant and don't go for a very long before data. That means very ancient data series. If you are doing research in 2025, go back at least up to 10 years. That means you can have a series uh, 2015 to 2025 or 2014 onwards. Don't go beyond that, because your results will be full of impurities, because before that some of the results are already established. Some of the data are now or some of the data are treated as obsolete too. Well, so data collection is important. I already mentioned what methodologies you have employed for data collection, that to be decided by the researcher based on your research problem. So you either go for the primary or secondary, and some larger research based on the mixture of these. I just can say some of the primary data collection mechanisms are based on experiment, questionnaire, observation, and interview. Those are the mechanisms. And secondary is very easy, but very huge databases are available, either literature review, official or non-official reports, various libraries, etc. Well, now I decide the data in my hand, we go for the analysis. In course of my discussion, I told all data are not prominent if it is a secondary data and not are analyzable. So you scan the data by your own, applying any technical process or manual screening is available. You go to cleaning the data, then go for the analysis. This is called the data processing. So what is data processing? You have to have the options of editing, coding, that means manipulations, classification, tabulation, presentation, because while you expose your letter, explain your research before the external world, you have to show you at least some of the data what you have collected. So you have to present your data and go for the measurement, applying different scaling technique. Again, my friends, I have to mention the scaling is another sort of discussion, another phase of discussion. So you expose your data using various categories. You can be descriptive, explanative, narrative. Ultimately, your research ended with conclusions and findings, but must don't forget to mention your own recommendations and suggestions for the future researchers. Your research report also facilitated with what are the hypothesis you applied, hypothesis testing mechanism, its explanation, its details analysis, and your results, your generalizations of your entire concept, your interpretations, and lastly, you prepare your entire report, but don't miss the sequence what I have told. So report design is primary stage. If it is approach, go for the detailed decision and detailed report. In our research field, primary stage is called abstract synopsis, and final one is the thesis. That's the close of our report. Okay. So I ended up to here, I think, and I leave a clue. If I give another chance, I will first prefer to decide about my research design, which is the second important, either research design or literature, but I prefer to the research design one. Thank you. Handed over to the podium now.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was really nice session with you, and you have developed the basic knowledge of the students that they can start their research by their own. Actually, research is a completely dynamic learning process, and with time, they have to learn a lot to do research by themselves. However, this foundation session is really insightful. Thank you so much, ma'am, for bearing time with us out of your busy schedule. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you again for the entire arrangement. And thank you,
Thank you so
Debasri.
much, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. So we are concluding today's session. Okay, ma'am. Thank you so
Okay, sure.
much.